late last night, Kyle Larson issued an apology regarding comments he made on Hendrick Motorsports. Let's talk about what he said. How's it going, you guys? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. Las Vegas is coming up this weekend. It'll be our first look at the full version of this new aero package, but I don't really want to talk about that in today's video. I think that's been talked about more than enough at this point. I want to talk about some comments Kyle Larson made yesterday when talking with NBC. Got a lot of people in the NASCAR social media world talking, debating, not just about what he said, but also kind of what we expect from drivers when they talk to the media. So there's a couple different sides of the story I want to look at, a couple different things I want to address. But firstly, let's just look at the clip that Kyle Larson said yesterday, talking about Hendrick Motorsports, talking about Chevy's performance, because it was kind of interesting.
I feel like Hendrick just plays games in a way with NASCAR, and I feel like they always start the year off kind of bad to like show NASCAR that they're being nice and cooperating and following the rules and stuff, and then it gets a couple months in, then they start cheating and finding some speed. So
that there's the clip that made headlines. You can see there, it seems like Kyle Larson is kind of just making a lighthearted joke. Hard to tell if he's really basing any of his comments on fact, on evidence, but it was definitely interesting. We don't really hear top competitors accuse other competitors of cheating, at least not publicly. That doesn't happen very often. The moment this all came out, we saw a different reaction from fans. You know, a lot of people were commending Kyle Larson for speaking his mind. They like that in drivers. Other people, thought he was just kind of making baseless accusations. All across the spectrum, you saw different reactions to this headline. Like I said, it feels kind of like he was joking. I don't think he has any, hard evidence to back up his claim. He doesn't drive for Hendrick Motorsports. He drives for Chip Ganassi Racing. He's not up to date on all the happenings within the Hendrick organization. Also, his theory that Hendrick Motorsports intentionally sandbags at the beginning of the year isn't really backed up by history. Obviously, in 2018, Hendrick Motorsports struggled out of the gate, but that was their first year with the new Camaro. By the end of the year, they were more competitive. You had Chase Elliott winning races and running up front, and Alex Bowman in the playoffs, Johnson in the playoffs. So yeah, last year maybe supports his argument, but you look at every year before that, Jimmie Johnson's often won some of the first races of the year. 2014, Dale Earnhardt Jr. won the Daytona 500, the first race of the season. Think back even to 2017. The last time Jimmie Johnson won races, he won 3 races all in the first half of the year, and then he kind of struggled the second half. So Kyle Larson's joke, his comments, his statement here, really don't have any factual evidence to back them up. They're really not supported by any sort of historical data. So I think Kyle Larson was just making a little joke here. Not sure why he felt the need to say that. It wasn't really a funny joke, but he said it, and that's why people are talking about it. Kind of reminds me of the situation a year ago when Denny Hamlin went out and publicly commented that a lot of drivers use Adderall. When he said that, there were a lot of drivers and fans that kind of went after him and really weren't too thrilled with those comments. And I think similar to what we see here with Larson, Denny Hamlin was just making a joke, not a very good joke, and maybe one that has some truth to it. Larson's Hendrick comments might have some truth to them. I mean, Hendrick Motorsports has been caught cheating before. But so has pretty much every other team in NASCAR, so what can we really say? When it's all said and done, I do think it's interesting how in the last year we've had 2 high-profile drivers make accusatory comments about other competitors, and fan reaction has been pretty split on both of these topics. Now, in this specific instance, Hendrick Motorsports, nobody over there has offered any sort of response to Larson's comments. Probably didn't think it was worth it, and I don't blame him. Kyle Larson, however, late last night did issue a public apology. He posted this on Twitter. He said, "I want to apologize to Mr. Hendrick and Team Hendrick for the comments I made earlier today. I feel terrible about it. I meant it jokingly, but shouldn't have implied that they're anything but a strong competitor that gets better as the season goes on. I appreciate the engine support we get from them, as they are a major part of the reason we've been as strong as we are." Now again, Kyle Larson posted that all on his own personal account. We didn't see any reaction from Chip Ganassi Racing. Nobody at Hendrick, as far as we know, publicly called for an apology. Kyle Larson just seemed to take it into his own hands and make that statement himself. Sure, maybe behind the scenes, someone at Chip Ganassi was like, hey, you should put this out. Maybe behind the scenes, someone at Hendrick was like, hey, Kyle, what the hell are you doing? Maybe there was something behind the scenes. But as far as we can tell, Kyle Larson just decided to kind of get ahead of whatever potential story there might be and make that comment, make that apology. And that's cool of him. That's good of him. But then, of course, I saw a lot of drivers and fans and just people in the media alike coming together and showing support for Kyle Larson, saying things like, you don't have to apologize for that. You do you, you be you. That's what the fans, that's what the sport needs. Now, here's kind of where I want to insert my opinion on this topic. This topic topic of, to what extent should drivers in this case, or pro athletes in general, be allowed to speak their mind on certain issues, or just in general. I'm going to mainly focus on NASCAR and NASCAR drivers for this argument because I think like the NFL, the NBA is very different. In those sports, I feel like a lot of times NFL or NBA athletes are encouraged to speak their minds about whatever, political stuff, team stuff in general, just they're encouraged to speak their minds. And I think it's different for NASCAR because in the NFL, you're not wearing another company's logo on your jersey. In NASCAR, if you say something controversial, it's going to be, you're saying that with the McDonald's logo, with the Lowe's logo, with Home Depot on your shirt. And immediately those companies are going to be associated with whatever you're saying. So as a result, you have to watch out for what you say more in NASCAR. It makes sense. I understand it. So I'm not going to compare it to other sports. I'm going to focus just on the argument of NASCAR drivers and what they should and shouldn't be allowed to say. I'm definitely more on the side where I completely support drivers speaking their minds. Even if it's kind of controversial, like go ahead and say it and let the fans, let everyone else kind of form their own opinions of it. I don't like the idea that these drivers have to apologize anytime they slightly step over the line. Now you can say something that's just really rude, really offensive, and I get that. At that point, yeah, you should apologize. But what Kyle Larson said right here really was just trash talk. Why should you have to apologize publicly just for, talking some trash? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. But here's where I do understand why NASCAR drivers specifically often kind of stay in this box. They don't like to step over. They don't like to be controversial. I get why they don't want to do that. Because I think we live currently in a society, I live in America. I can't speak for every culture across the world. If you're watching this from some other country, maybe it's different. But in America, at least, it definitely feels like we're kind of living in a culture where everyone is looking for something to be outraged about. People want to be angry at someone for something. They want to have that fuel to go after somebody. That's just, in general, that's how it feels these days. One small misstep can ruin somebody's entire reputation, entire credibility. It can destroy all of it pretty quick. And that doesn't just include celebrities or people in the public eye. It also includes companies, businesses. Because it's so easy these days to kind of provoke an angry mob of sorts, companies especially are very wary of being involved in any sort of significant controversy. There's some recent NASCAR examples I could give. Remember last year, Conor Daly was set to make an Xfinity Series start for Roush Fenway with Lilly Diabetes as the primary sponsor. However, at the very last minute, Lilly Diabetes dropped out and completely disassociated themselves from Conor Daly because suddenly there were allegations that Conor Daly's father had used a racial slur during an interview like 40 years earlier. Conor Daly himself did nothing wrong, said nothing wrong, but the fact that there was allegations that his father did something wrong 30, 40 years ago, that was enough for this major company to pull out and cost Conor Daly thousands of dollars worth of sponsorship. They were afraid of any potential controversy, even though clearly I don't think any controversy really came out of that, but they were afraid because they've seen recent examples just around the world how the smallest controversy can destroy a brand. That's just a NASCAR example, but this kind of stuff happens all over media. Even in YouTube news recently, YouTube's kind of landed itself in trouble with advertisers because there have been some kind of inappropriate videos on this site, apparently, that advertisers weren't too happy about, so now a bunch of advertisers have pulled out of YouTube recently because they don't want to be associated with any potential controversy. Even though I don't really think anyone's going to associate these advertisers with inappropriate videos on YouTube's platform, I don't think anyone's really going to connect those two and blame the advertisers for it. They're going to blame YouTube, but despite all this, these advertisers, a lot of them at least, have completely pulled out. Disney has, I know other major brands as well. Companies, brands, businesses, they just want to stay completely away from even the tiniest shred of controversy. So when drivers like Kyle Larson make these comments like he did earlier this week, he's running a risk that maybe Credit One isn't going to like those comments, and maybe they're going to go back to Chip Ganassi and say, hey, we don't want to sign an extension or something. He's running a risk when he steps out of that line. So that's why a lot of people probably think it's silly for Kyle Larson to make a public apology after those comments, but honestly, it was probably the smart thing to do for him, Protect himself against any potential drawback. Honestly, it was the right thing to do. It's a shame that he has to do that because he shouldn't have to. We want drivers to be able to speak their minds. If there's a controversy, they got a problem with someone or something, they should be allowed to speak it without any major repercussions possibly coming their way. But that's not the world we live in, and unfortunately NASCAR is not totally immune to that. That being said, there's still been some great NASCAR stars in recent years that, have been able to speak their mind and gotten away with it. Like Tony Stewart. He was a popular driver because he would say whatever was on his mind, controversial or not. He would say it and let you know it, and a lot of fans appreciate that. Even Dale Earnhardt Jr., I think, one of the most real guys. He'd tell it like it is, and a lot of fans appreciate that. So it feels like that should be the trend these days, but I've made these comments before. A lot of NASCAR's youngest superstars, guys that are coming into the league right now that are kind of like the next big thing, the Chase Elliott's, the Eric Joneses, even the William Byrons, Daniel Suarez's, they got no personality. They don't. That's the 100% truth of it. They got no personality. You think back to the last era with Tony Stewart, that's a big personality. Even Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt Sr., big personalities. You look at the current generation of young up-and-coming superstars, Bubba Wallace is probably the most interesting guy. My final thing here, I guess, is if you're a NASCAR driver who happens to be watching this video, speak your mind. Just feel free to say what's on your mind. Fans will like you more for it, I'm convinced. I think fans appreciate honesty, even if it's brutal honesty, even if it's kind of blunt. Fans appreciate honesty, and I think really if you just keep it real, fans will appreciate it, and hopefully sponsors get the idea and catch up with the fans as well on that one. Anyway, you guys, that's all I really want to talk about in this video. I wanted to address those comments because I thought it was a very interesting situation, seeing how people are reacting to that. I wanted to make my thoughts clear. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you appreciate when drivers speak their mind? Do you think drivers should, be more careful about what they say? What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you for watching. Remember, you can follow me on Instagram or Twitter. Continue the conversation over on other social medias. Links to my bios are down in the description. Also, you can get yourself an Out of the Groove t-shirt, also available down by the description. Also, got my P.O. box address down there if you want to send me some cool NASCAR stuff. And then, of course, a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters. Thank you guys for the support. Michael Harrison at Gwas of the Stars, SelfishGifts.com, Mentally Defective, Cameron James, Tice Moore, John Koblenz, Tim Shingen, Jason R. Long, Wesley Donaldson, Isaac Dennison, Mika Suzuki, iFantasyRace.com, and the rest of these amazing Patreon supporters. Thank you guys so much for continuing to support me, for continuing to support the show. I really appreciate it. Got some very exciting things in the works right now. I can go ahead and say now that I will be at Texas Motor Speedway for the spring race here at the end of March, so in about a month I will be there probably for the whole race weekend this time. I've actually never been to Texas Motor Speedway for the full Truck Xfinity Cup weekend. I've been for like the Xfinity and the Cup race before, but I've never been there all 3 days. I'm planning to be there for all 3 days this March, so if you see me, if you're coming out to the Texas Motor Speedway and you see me, feel free to say hi. I'm going to be filming some special stuff while I'm there. I'll have more information on that hopefully later on. Can't say too much yet, but I'm very excited, and I hope you guys are excited too. A lot of fun videos coming out soon, and I hope you guys are right there to enjoy them with me. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you soon.